If you're a developer making apps for Jira or thinking about making some apps for Jira, then starting January 1st, things are going to get a little bit more expensive. Atlassian is going to raise the prices of Forge and introduce this new paid and free tiers that you're definitely going to want to be aware of. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and let's jump into it. So, effective January 2026, Atlassian is going to be updating the Forge pricing. Now, if you don't know, Forge is the platform that allows developers to create apps for Jira. Now, this process has evolved over the last 20 years, and Forge is the latest version that we use in the cloud. You might have heard of Connect. That's one of the more popular ones as well within the last 10 years or so. But Forge is where Atlassian wants all development to happen. And whenever you see on the marketplace built on Forge or built with Forge or Atlassian Cloud Approved, that's all of that Forge stuff being promoted. And Forge is great for developers because instead of having to rely on your own infrastructure and databases and all the good stuff that makes an app come to life, Forge packages it all up for you. But for the last few years, Atlassian made Forge free. And so developers were able to use and technically abuse all the Forge resources. And Atlassian kind of is catching on to that. And so, effective January 2026, in order to help, right, because this is not free, every time that an app runs and that there's a function call or a SQL call, it costs money. It's not free. And so Atlassian is essentially drawing a line in the sand and saying, up to this point, it's free, it's covered, because Atlassian still wants to incentivize development, right? You still want to make it free enough and enticing enough so that people come in, because without developers, then you don't really have much of a marketplace, right? And so Atlassian still needs to have some incentive for folks to come into the ecosystem and build for the Atlassian ecosystem, right? It's going to be a critical part. But Atlassian is also kind of like, hey, we're kind of done bleeding here, and we need to, shareholders, money, stakeholders, they want some money. And so we're going to have Forge pricing. And so here's a summary of what's going on. And they've organized this in a somewhat easy to understand mode where we have our family here, which is going to be what is it that we do, right? Are we looking for compute power, KVS, logs, or SQL? And based on what you're trying to do within Forge, right, we have the capabilities. Are we reading data? Are we writing data? Are we storing data? Are we writing to the logs? Are we doing computations with the SQL, right? Are we doing compute requests from SQL? Are we storing data, right? Depending on what you're trying to do, there's going to be a unit of how much is free, right? And so I don't know. I've never developed with Forge, so I don't know if these thresholds are enough or too little or too much. But I would assume that it's supposed to be enticing enough so that you want to develop, right? So these 100,000 gigabytes per second, I'm assuming that's supposed to be enough, right? There's zero point 0.1 gigabytes per month that you can read. I don't know if that doesn't feel like a lot. That's like what, 100 megabytes? I don't know that 100 megabytes is enough. But let me know in the comment section if you're a Forge developer, what do you think of these numbers? How is this going to impact you, right? Because to me, this feels like a little bit, right? 100 megabytes, 1.1 gigabyte, right? 1 gigabyte of logs, 1 hour of compute, 100,000 requests. That feels like reasonable. But what happens if you're doing like 10 million requests? So I don't know, right? I just don't know if it's enough. And so this is actually something I'm going to start exploring, right? I'm getting myself into the Forge world. Now I kind of feel like I'm joining at the wrong time because I do run a pretty high risk of essentially start getting billed by Atlassian for these services, where for the last few years it used to be completely free. So, anyways, here's the pricing, right? And so this is what's going to happen if you go above the threshold. And they're not very, very clear on what's going to go, right? Is it like for every gigabyte you're paying $1? Is that like, I don't know. We'll see what this plays out. I'm personally going to try and put some money on this and see how much Atlassian ends up charging me. But for everybody else, if you're a developer using Forge, this is a pretty big and significant change because you now have to pay for this. And this is the part of the problem when you use a platform as a service and an infrastructure as a service like Forge, because you don't have that control, right? But at the same time, you now don't have to worry about setting up your own resources, right? And so there's a balancing act. It just sucks that Atlassian for the last few years made it super free and enticed everybody to come into it. But now, again, because rent's due, Atlassian needs to start charging for these services for you. So again, I'm a little heartbroken. I feel like I'm starting at the wrong time, but I'm assuming that for big app developers, this is going to take a pretty big hit out of their profits, right? Because they now need to pay for the infrastructure because they're definitely going to be exceeding these items. And so again, let me know in the comment section how much you're impacted by this. Now, one other thing to note here is that invoicings are going to be generated per a developer space, right? So a developer space groups together multiple apps developed by an individual, a partner organization, or a customer. The developer space admin will receive a single invoice combining these charges for any apps in the space consuming resources from above beyond the free. And so just keep in mind that if you have multiple apps, you're just going to get one single bill. So that's at least some good. They also do have a cost dashboard and a somewhat cost estimator to help you figure out how much you're going to end up paying. So actually, let's go look at that. And so if I'm going to do functions and some key value sources like their database, right? Let's do some logs because, you got to check to see if things are going to be used or not. Let's put 500,000. I don't know if that's enough. Overage is, so it's $10. And then let's just say that we need, I don't know, 10 gigabytes. And so that's 54 cents. So that's not too bad. This is pretty cheap actually. But let's go with the reads now. Let's do that. Okay, so this gets a little bit more expensive. And then let's assume the same 10 gigabytes, right? So $30 a month. Again, this is not too bad, but let's just make these all 100 gigabytes. Again, I've never made an app, so I don't know if these numbers are high or low. But I would assume still $223 a month. Let's just make this like 1.5 million. Yeah, so it seems pretty reasonable now that I look at it from this perspective. It seems okay, but again, I just don't know how much is 100 gigabytes. Like, is that a lot of data? Is that a little bit, right? Are we talking like 1,000? Are most apps using 1,000? In which case it starts to get a little bit more expensive, but I don't know. I don't have enough context to know this, but if you have some information, let me know. I'm very, very curious, right? Like on average, how many gigabytes of key value storage reads and writes are you using? Is 1,000 gigabytes, 10,000 gigabytes? Are you using 100,000 gigabytes? I would assume it depends on how many customers you have and whatnot, and how many people are using your app. But now you got to factor this into the pricing, right? So at the end, the consumer is the one that loses anyways, right? Because the developer is not going to eat this cost. They're just going to pass those savings on to the consumer. And so now enterprises and customers, when they do their annual renewals or even their monthly renewals, they're going to see price increases in the cost of their Forge app. So yet again, another reason why Atlassian is going to get a little bit more expensive. Anyways, that recaps our new Forge pricing. It's going to impact developers. It's definitely going to impact end users because Jira is going to get a little bit more expensive, not just for one team, but for a lot of different people. So stay tuned for more information. And again, if you're a developer and you actually have some good numbers that you can share with me, let me know down in the comment section and I'd be more than happy to take a look at those numbers. Thanks. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next one.